Welcome to the Daily Gospel of John. It's a beautiful day. I'm psyched that you're watching. Today we're going to look at verse 22 to 25. So here we go. The next day, the crowd that had stayed on the opposite shore of the lake realized that only one boat had been there and that Jesus had not entered it with his disciples, but that they had gone away alone. Then some boats from Tiberias landed near the place where the people had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. Once the crowd realized that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they got into the boats and went to Capernaum in search of Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, "Rabbi, when did you get here?" I'd like to make a small thought concerning this passage. These people had seen a great miracle the day before, the feeding of the 5,000. They had probably also seen some of the healing miracles that Jesus did, and they were captivated. They wanted more. That's reasonable. They knew, though, that the disciples had left on the only boat out of town to head across the Galilee to Capernaum. They saw that Jesus was not on that boat with the disciples, that he had climbed up on the mountainside to be alone and pray. And so it's not surprising that they're mystified as to where Jesus went. And so they thought, well, who knows, maybe he made his way to Capernaum in some way, and they got into boats and followed him. They so much wanted to see what was going to come next. Well, that's all reasonable. What I want to say is that reason is a good thing. We're to use our minds, and God doesn't want us to check our brains out at the door when we come to faith. But reason won't take us all the way. God is a God that doesn't limit himself to acting within our little box of reason. And that just makes sense. Even humanly speaking, we could look at the box of reason that men were limited to, say, 300 years ago. The most brilliant scientists knew only a little bit of what we know now. And they were brilliant people. And if the extent of where their minds would take them was their little box, and if they couldn't dream beyond that, that's a pretty small box to live in. The proverb says, "Do you see a man who is wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him." To have an inquiring mind and to at least give thought to the concept of mystery, that there's things beyond our reasoning that happen. And if there is a God, and there is, then he certainly, again, is not bound to work within our little box. This might sound like a corny illustration, but I was thinking, if you had a bunch of brilliant physicists and they're all around a pool table and they have these machines shooting out pool balls at certain angles and they're making measurements and calculations about speed and momentum and friction and angles and impacts and all that, with their intellectual abilities, their reasoning, they could make some pretty darn accurate predictions of where those balls will stop. But let's add in one unknown variable. And that's some quirky guy that walks up, grabs a pool ball in mid-motion, throws it over his shoulder, and says, "Ha, figure that out." Well, they're kind of mystified at that point. Their predictions all went out the window when an individual, a living being, who they can't put in a box of prediction, makes a move and does something. And the God who is, he is an individual. He is a being with a thinking mind and a free will, and we can't put him in our box. And if we really want to come to know him, we're going to have to look outside of where our limited minds will take us, into the realm what we call miraculous now. 100 years ago, if we had told somebody about a message floating through space, showing up as a human being talking on a little device, they would have said we were crazy. That would be magic. It's not magic. You know what I'm saying. Well, have a good day. Thank you for watching. And I hope that you will see through the eyes of faith today the God who is. God bless.